Hello, I'm Nigleria, and welcome to Chess 3 Introduction Open Beta. Now, you might have heard of Chess 3 from, last year, this year. What the fuck is this? Whatever. So what I'm gonna do here is go over some of the main armies, talk about what they do. So, first up, Kamikaze. Kamikaze, same move set as normal chess. The pawn can go one or two at the start, then up over one. What's unique about the pawn, though, is that in Kamikaze they can capture diagonally or forwards. However, if you capture forwards or diagonally, if you capture it all with a pawn, it suicides. So whatever piece you capture and your piece is removed from the game. For non-pawn pieces, so the rooks, bishops, knight, queen, and king, when they capture, they kaboom. And if you do that, if I was to capture this, kaboom, then you remove the pawn and everything within one space of it. And that's true for every non-pawn piece. And that includes your own pieces, like my own pawn there. One thing that's important to note here is that the king is not immune to suicide bombing. So if this queen was right here and it's like, oh, you can kill it, it's gonna kill the king. If I try to capture it with my bishop here, it'll kaboom and destroy my own king along with it. So that's not a legal move. I would need to capture with my queen, thus kabooming and then destroying everything else. The king does not suicide when capturing. It is the only piece in Kamikaze that does not suicide when capturing. So in that scenario, you would be forced to capture the king and blow up your own queen, bishop, do pawns. So that's like your biggest worry with Kamikaze, is that the enemy can basically force you to blow up your own shit. Next up, we have Arcade. In Arcade, the queen and the bishops can bounce off walls diagonally. This is pretty strong. To nerf that, the queen cannot move vertically, it can only move diagonally and horizontally. Either diagonal works. The rooks can only move one space at a time. However, if they were to capture a piece, then they could move two spaces at a time. Essentially, every time they capture a piece, they gain a square of movement. The king cannot move diagonally. He can only move vertically and horizontally. One space at a time. Knights can horizontally level wrap. So right here, if it'd be like 1, 2, 3, that's a legal move. Or here, from this position. Also, since the queen and the bishops bounce off walls, opening up the king with the king's pawn, that would give a bouncing bishop and queen, and that's like god tier. So you can't move this pawn until turn 3. Also, the pawns can only move one space at a time. Next up, Copycat. Copycat is a very interesting army. Basically, if a piece is directly in front of your piece, like on the square directly in front of it, it will copy the moveset. So right in front of this knight is a pawn, so the knight will move as a pawn. Right at the start, your only legal moves are pawn moves. So if I was to move this, now there's nothing in front of the knight, so it just moves as a knight. Let's say I move the knight here. Alright, then in front of this pawn is a knight, so it acts as a knight, and it chains for allied units, so this is 3 knights. So this is a legal move, moving your bishop as a knight there. And this makes these 3 pieces bishops, so I can move this pawn here into the bishop right now. However, if I was to move it here, then this queen is no longer a bishop, there's nothing in front of it, so it's just a queen. Anything? Oh, if my knight was here, I could move. If I somehow moved my queen here, then it's like, bam, this is amazing. I have 4 queens right now, and that's true. But a symbol, 1 pawn move, bam. Now all 4 of these are pawns. If there's an enemy unit in front of it, it copies the enemy unit. Just the first one. Only the first one for enemy units, and it stacks for friendlies. So you need to worry that you're gonna like pawn your queen or any of your units if they're too far forward or in a bad position. That's the downside of Copycat, is that you can be your army can basically be nullified. The king cannot copy other pieces, and no piece can copy other kings. Kings of any army, including this one, are immune to copying. Diplomatic immunity. So the diplomatic immunity army, you don't have a queen at the start. You still have these guys though, and they each have like once per game. Any the rook, knight, or bishop. Once per game, they can declare diplomatic immunity, and they'll be able to move as one of the others. So let's say, all right, this rook, it's like move 1, I declare diplomatic immunity, and you move it as a knight. Or as the bishop, you can declare diplomatic immunity, move it as a knight or as a rook, and move it there. It only works once during the game, though. After that, they no longer have diplomatic immunity. This gives some interesting options where, essentially, you can bring a knight up or any other piece, and it has a lot of options if it still has diplomatic immunity. Speed King. But the Speed King, your king can basically move twice. Every other piece can only move once per turn, but your king can move twice.
So now let's listen to the music and identify.
There's no other benefits to the army, and it is the downside. With the normal midline invasion where you need to move a king past the middle of the board to win the game. With the Speed King, you need to move past to the 6th rank, not the 5th. 5th won't do, you have to move to the 6th. As a refresher to people who aren't familiar with the Chess 2 armies, there's the 2 kings, where instead of a queen you have a 2nd king. You can make a normal move and then a 2nd move with one of your kings, either one. They can whirlwind, which destroys any piece on a square directly around them, similar to the Kamikaze's Kaboom. However, if there's a king, if your other king was in one of those pieces, then it's not a legal move because you would destroy one of your own kings. And for midline invasion, you need both kings across the middle. The biggest worry for 2 kings is multi-check. When there's one piece that's checking both kings. Even though you get 2 moves, if on the first move you don't undo both checks, that's considered checkmate. So you really need to worry about that. Like right here you could undo the multi-check by capturing, but right here you could not. Animals. In animals, your rook can move 3 spaces and only 3 spaces. If you capture a unit and you can capture friendlies, you must move all 3 spaces, and that's a rampage. It destroys anything in its path. So potentially you could capture 3 pieces. The knight moves as a normal knight, but it can kill its friendly pieces as well, which provides some interesting opportunities. One thing to note about the rook is that it can only be captured by pieces within 2 spaces of it. So this queen cannot capture this animal's rook right now. It would need to be within 2 spaces in order to capture it. The bishops can move as a normal bishop, but when capturing, it can only capture within 2 spaces. And it pounces back to the square it was on. So it would like move here, capture, and pounce back. So basically this removes one of the pieces within 2 diagonal squares of it. The queen moves as a rook and a knight. It can't move diagonally. just as a rook and a knight. I think that's it for the animals. Empowered. With the empowered, the rook, knight, and bishop can gain the moveset of the other pieces if it's directly beside them. So if there's a rook and a knight beside each other, the knight can move as a knight or a rook can move as a rook or a knight. And if this guy was somehow here, then all three can move as all three. So right at the start of the game, it's probably a good move to bring the rook and bishop out, and then bam, is the third move, knight, and you got a lot of movement options. The queen, however, moves as a king. So one space maximum. The Reaper army, where the queen can move anywhere on the board, but it cannot move to the back rank. So it could just teleport to any space besides the enemy's back rank. Rooks can do the same thing, but they cannot capture or be captured. They're basically just blockers. The queen can still capture, though. One thing to know is that the queen cannot capture the king. So you could capture any piece that's not in the back rank except for the king. The Nemesis army, where a pawn can either move forward or toward the king, which is like horizontally toward the king. They can only ever move one space. They can never move two at the start, but you don't really need that. The queen cannot capture or be captured. It still has a normal moveset. It can still threaten check, so even though it can't technically capture, this would still be check. So you can still check and checkmate with the queen, but it can't actually capture anything. Those are the main ones. Ooh, the Portal Army. So the Portal Army, each piece, like the Rook, Knight, Bishop, acts as a teleporter to the other side. So right now, this pawn can move through this bishop and end up here by teleporting. However, the enemy units can also choose to teleport through your units, and you have to worry about that. The king cannot teleport. No kings can teleport. The Feminist Army. You don't have a king, you have two queens. You lose the game if both queens are captured or all pawns are captured. There's no midline invasion win since they don't actually have a king. The CFB army. The CFB army is pretty interesting. Basically, pieces can't be killed by the same pieces themselves. So, enemy rooks cannot capture your rook, enemy bishops cannot capture your bishop. Likewise, enemy pawns cannot capture your pawns. However, your pawns can't capture at all. They can't capture anything, they're mainly just like blockers. The Eidgod army, where pawns must move double the space of the normal chess movement. So at the start, normally pawns can move 1 or 2. So with Eidgod army, they can move 2 or 4. That includes capturing. Right now this is check, so you would capture and move to the next space. You also do that there. But there must be a unit on the first square. Right now, you can only capture this direction. It needs to be the first square to like start that initial movement. This army, yeah, like if you can't move through 4 spaces, you can just move third. It'll block. But what's bad about this army is that essentially you can't move to this space ever. So it's like it leaves openings in the pawn defense. It's an interesting army to play. Calvin Ball. As a rule, as a turn or a move, you can change a rule. It must, like, you could say, like, all pawns now move as queens. And that's your move. And then the enemy, it affects both your and the enemy army. So they get to, like, move first afterwards. Only one rule can be changed at a time. The Blitzkrieg army. Pawns are, yeah, the Blitzkrieg army. Pawns are the leg infantry and they start in the back. The exception of the king's pawn. So this is the start for Blitzkrieg. Alright, let's see. Rooks are panzer divisions. The bishops are motorized infantry. They move like normal rooks, normal bishops, but they can only move 7 spaces before they run out of fuel and they need to be refueled. They can't move anymore. As a move, you can refuel two pieces. The queen has the same queen's movement, but it can only move 4 spaces before needing to refuel. The knight is close air support. It can destroy any piece within 3 spaces. So like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Like advanced war style. Like 1, 2, 3. So right now it's just threatening this pawn. It cannot. You can't use air support after rebasing or moving your like knight. You have to wait 1 turn before you can use air support from that knight. Knights are really strong, so you need to be careful about not losing them. I think that's it for the Blitzkrieg. That's basically the gist of it. If you have any questions, you can ask me or refer to the rules. So, see ya!